Chapter 2639. Wang Xian's sister Beishuang, both of you will stay in this courtyard. The red-crowned crane brought them to a courtyard in the center of the grassland. The Emperor Star Maiden spoke to Wang Xian with a smile. Master, I won't be staying here for the next few days. I have something to deal with. Beishuang looked at Wang Xian and spoke. Alright, go ahead. Let me know if there's anything. Wang Xian looked at Beishuang and nodded. Clearly, Beishuang had come to the imperial court to deal with some matters of her own. Wang Xian did not probe further. Doesn't Sister Beishuang live here? A curious expression appeared on the Emperor Star Maiden's face. Anting had also told her that Beishuang had a grudge against the former imperial prince of the imperial court. Her arrival this time was obviously to settle some grudges. Someone's probably going to be unlucky, she thought to herself. Although the princes of the imperial court were strong, especially the princes from 30,000 years ago, who were at least at the immortal god king realm, they were still much weaker than Beishuang. According to the rules of the imperial court, Beishuang wouldn't say anything even if she beat him up. In a spar between the same generation, even if the imperial court disciples lost terribly, the imperial court wouldn't interfere. Young Master Wang Xian, thank you for taking care of Star Lady during this period. Come and have a taste of the tea leaves that I planted personally, said the woman to Wang Xian with a smile after seeing Beishuang leaving. Yes, auntie. Wang Xian nodded his head and followed her to a room at the side. Wang Xian, the competition of the current generation disciples of the imperial court will be held the day after tomorrow. You can rest here for the next 2 days. Emperor Star Maiden whispered to Wang Xian. 2 days later? That's great. I also have some matters to deal with. Wang Xian nodded with a smile. What is it? The Emperor Star Maiden glared at him. I want to sell some stuff. Does the imperial court have an auction? It would be best if it's a large one. Wang Xian looked at her and said, selling the soul-returning elixir was the most important thing here. It was related to whether or not he could improve his strength. Of course there are auctions. The largest auction in the center of the imperial court is the Imperial Court Auction House. I'll take you there tomorrow. The Emperor Star Maiden said to him. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head. Mr. Wang Xian, have a taste of my tea of forgetfulness. The Emperor Star Maiden's mother quickly brought a cup of tea over and placed it beside Wang Xian. Thank you. Wang Xian thanked him politely and received it with both hands. Next, Wang Xian chatted with the Emperor Star Daughter's mother for a while before heading to the courtyard at the side. Star Lady, this young Master Wang Xian is not bad. Cherish him, said the woman to the Emperor Star Maiden with a smile as she watched Wang Xian leave. What? Mom, what are you talking about? The Emperor Star Princess blushed and lowered her head shyly. He doesn't look big and he's strong. He's the leader of a faction. The youth of the imperial court can't compare to him at all. Let's grab this chance. The woman continued to look at her. Mom, what nonsense are you talking about? How could it be possible between me and him? I have a good relationship with one of his girlfriends. Moreover, how could I like such a playboy? Humph. The Emperor Star Maiden shook her head and snorted coldly. Alright, Star Maiden, think about it carefully. Your achievements today have already made your mother very proud. The woman stroked her head and said proudly. Imperial Court Auction House. When he returned to the courtyard, Wang Xian took out the artificial intelligence system and did a search. The war is about to begin. The Imperial Court Auction House will be holding a grand auction the day after tomorrow. Welcome all experts and young masters. When he was searching, a message immediately appeared on the artificial intelligence system. There will be a large-scale auction the day after tomorrow. Wang Xian looked at the information on the screen and revealed a faint smile. The Imperial Court Disciple Competition will be held 2 days later. This auction might be an attempt to attract the youths of the Imperial Court before the competition. Other than that, there should be a lot of treasures for the upcoming war in the abyss. Wang Xian mumbled to himself. However, he wasn't here to buy anything. His main purpose was to sell his items. He took out the artificial intelligence system and sent a message to the Emperor Star Maiden. Wang Xian, what's the matter? After an hour, the Emperor Star Maiden walked over and asked him. Bring me to the Imperial Court Auction House. I want to auction some treasures, Wang Xian said to the Emperor Star Maiden. You brat, it seems like accompanying me is just along the way, she said unhappily. Why would I? I'm just selling some items along the way. Wang Xian smiled. He wasn't purposely trying to anger her. At least you still have some conscience. Let's go. I'll bring you over. The Emperor Star Maiden smiled with satisfaction and led Wang Xian out of the hall. Let's ride the cranes. After walking out of the courtyard, the Emperor Star Maiden patted the head of a crane and stood on it. Wang Xian was standing beside her. Let's go to the central market. She patted the crane and said, Walala. The crane flapped its wings and flew towards the direction of the palace. The speed of the crane didn't seem fast to Wang Xian. In the surrounding starry sky, he could see people riding on various battle pets. There were also people driving cool flying cars, flying swords, or riding on clouds. On this prosperous and huge island, it was like a paradise. Soon, a bustling market appeared in his sight. Wang Xian could see all kinds of shops. Technological weapons, technological robots, technological equipment. Array puppets, battle pets, relic equipment. There were all kinds of things. Moreover, each shop had a strong aura. After all, this was the inner island. Only immortal kings and disciples of the imperial court could enter. We're here. Let's go down. Half an hour later, the Emperor Star Maiden pointed to a huge building below. The building looked like the Colosseum in ancient Rome. However, the interior looked like something out of a science fiction novel. An auction hall that combined technology and cultivation. The entire auction hall could accommodate at least 1 million people. They could land directly from the sky. Both Wang Xian and Stargirl moved and flew downwards. Welcome to the Imperial Court Auction Hall. Our auction will be held the day after tomorrow. Are the two of you here to make your reservation, or to submit your items for auction? A staff walked over and asked politely when they landed in a hall below the auction hall. Submit my items for auction, said Wang Xian as he swept his gaze across the surroundings. TSK, isn't this the famous star goddess? Suddenly at this moment, a voice came from behind. Wang Xian was stunned. The Emperor Star Maiden's face darkened. Why? You want my autograph? Hee. The Emperor Star Maiden turned around and said coldly to the girls behind her. Chapter 2640. Buffed, I want your autograph. TSK, an actor's autograph, it's too embarrassing for us. At the other entrance of the auction house, 3 women in skirts stood there, looking at the Emperor Star Maiden with disdain in their eyes. Hee. If you think it's embarrassing, why did you call me? Aren't you being cheap? When the Emperor Star Maiden heard their mockery, her expression turned ice cold. Ha, calling us cheap? I don't know who it is, but I heard that our star goddess is being kept as a mistress by a powerful leader. TSK, an old man that's hundreds of thousands of years old. The star goddess is actually willing to eat him. It seems like our star goddess has sacrificed a lot for this disciple tournament. It's not just sacrificed a lot, it's practically sacrificed everything, ha. The mocking voices came out from the mouths of the 3 women, sounding exceptionally ear-piercing. When the Emperor Star Maiden heard their words, a look of anger appeared on her face. Are you looking for a beating? The Emperor Star Maiden narrowed her eyes and stared coldly at the 3 of them. What? Want to teach us a lesson? Tomorrow, we will let everyone know that entertainers will always be entertainers. In this world, only the strong are respected. The woman in the center coldly stared at the Emperor Star Maiden. There's no need to wait until tomorrow. Just you 3 pieces of trash? With a wave of her hand, the dragon blood sword appeared in her hand. At the same time, she tossed out an item that instantly enveloped the 4 of them. Emperor Star Maiden, you're courting death. You want to spar with us at this time? When the 3 girls saw the Emperor Star Maiden releasing the sparring formation, their faces turned cold. Today, I'll teach you 3 annoying fellows a lesson. The Emperor Star Maiden coldly snorted and casually swung the dragon blood sword at the 3 of them. You're asking for a beating. The 3 girls coldly roared. A whip and 2 sharp swords attacked the Emperor Star Maiden. Bam. However, what shocked the 3 girls was that the sharp swords and long whips in their hands instantly crumbled after being struck by the energy of the dragon blood sword. How is this possible? The expressions of the three of them changed drastically. As disciples of the imperial court, the weapons in their hands were not ordinary weapons. Although they were not very powerful divine weapons, they were still very powerful. But now it was defeated in an instant. With your strength, you're not even fit to be my maids. The Emperor Star Maiden casually swung the dragon blood sword in her hand again, and a powerful energy slashed towards the three of them. Not good. The three of them panicked and hurriedly dodged to the side. Poo-pee-you-pee-you. But in the next moment, the sword light landed on their bodies, and deep wounds instantly appeared on their bodies. How can you be so strong? The expressions of the three girls changed drastically. Their eyes widened as they screamed in disbelief. You'd better take a detour when you see me in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. The Emperor Star Maiden coldly swept her gaze over the three of them. With a wave of her hand, she retracted the sparring formation. You. Their expressions changed drastically, and their hearts skipped a beat. A few years ago, the Emperor Star Princess's strength was similar to theirs, only at the 5th level of the Eternal Divine Lord realm. How could she be so powerful now? These past few years, in order to increase their strength, they had also casually eaten elixirs, but it was only able to increase their strength by 1 level. But the Emperor Star Maiden could easily defeat them. Based on their senses, he had at least the strength of an Eternal Divine Master. With such strength, she could definitely compete with the Emperor Star Maiden. Get lost! The Emperor Star Maiden stared at the three of them and shouted, "Let's go." The three girls were somewhat unwilling. They looked at each other with fear, and left directly. How could her strength increase so quickly? Her sugar daddy must have given her some powerful elixir or supreme treasure. Otherwise. The three of them covered their wounds and roared in a low voice with pale faces. They did not lack cultivation elixirs, and the only thing that could allow them to increase their strength quickly was their aptitude and talent. If their strength was similar a few years ago, then they must have encountered some great fortuitous encounter. Moreover, they had also heard from other disciples that the Emperor Star Maiden was now very close to the leader of a decent force. Therefore, some female disciples spread the rumor that she had become a sugar daddy of a force's leader. After all, the entertainment circle was a filthy place in the eyes of these disciples. Those so-called celebrities were just entertainers in their eyes. And with their status and identity, celebrities were indeed entertainers. That's pretty impressive. But why didn't I know that you have become a sugar daddy of an old man? Wang Xian laughed and asked teasingly when he saw the Emperor Star Maiden defeating the three girls in a domineering manner. I think you're asking for a beating too. The Emperor Star Maiden glared at Wang Xian and raised the dragon blood sword in her hand. TSK, you want to beat me up with the dragon blood sword that I gave you? Sigh, how heartless. Wang Xian laughed. Shut up. Those guys actually said that I'm a sugar daddy of an old man. Damn it. The Emperor Star Maiden said with hatred. The staff of the auction house did not react to this scene at all. On the island of the Imperial Court, as long as the buildings were not destroyed, and after setting up the battle formation, one could fight at any time. Of course, disciples of the Imperial Court were prohibited from fighting to the death. Once someone died, regardless of who was in the wrong, they would be executed immediately. Young master, young mistress, please take out the items you have put up for auction. Our auction house will appraise them before confirming if they are qualified to be auctioned. The staff asked Wang Xian and the rest. I obtained this drop of soul rejuvenation elixir by chance in a treasure trove. As long as a drop of blood is poured into the soul rejuvenation elixir, the host will be able to revive from the soul rejuvenation elixir if they die. It is definitely a priceless treasure. As Wang Xian spoke, he took out a jade bottle with a drop of grayish liquid in it. The grayish liquid exuded a mysterious energy. When the staff heard Wang Xian, they were shocked. Young master, we'll get the experts from the auction house to appraise it immediately. Please wait a moment. The staff said to Wang Xian immediately as they walked to the back with the jade bottle. Star Maiden, they won't run away with my treasures, right? Wang Xian raised an eyebrow and asked when he saw the staff leaving with the soul-returning fluid. You're thinking too much. Even if your soul-returning fluid has such a miraculous effect, they won't run away. This is opened by the imperial court. Bei Shuang rolled her eyes at him and said, That's hard to say. My soul-returning fluid is a priceless treasure that can save my life. Wang Xian smiled. However, he believed what Bei Shuang said. The imperial court would not do such a thing. It's indeed a priceless treasure that can save your life. The fruits on your dragon throne are not bad either. Give me a few in the future. The Emperor Star Maiden nodded her head slightly and said casually, Dream on. Wang Xian looked at her. Chapter 2641. Exciting pop-up window for free reading. Grandmaster D. There is a young man who has sent us a treasure. He said that the effect of this treasure is heaven-defying. As long as you drip a drop of blood on it, you will be able to be resurrected after you die. I can see that it possesses incredible power. I'm here to get Grandmaster D to appraise it. Just as Wang Xian and Emperor Star Maiden were conversing outside, the staff brought the soul-returning fluid to a room at the back and whispered, Resurrection from a drop of blood? The door opened automatically, and the staff hurried in. In the room, an old man stood up and looked at the staff member. Grandmaster D, I can't understand this treasure. Please appraise it. The old man was the Grandmaster Appraisal of the Imperial Court. At the same time, he was the strongest in the Imperial Court auction house. With the strength of a level 9 immortal king, and the ability to appraise thousands of items, his status in the Imperial Court was relatively high. Amazing. So powerful. Grandmaster D took the soul-returning fluid, and his eyes lit up. Wang. He moved his arm and took out a book. There were no words on the book. However, when he placed the soul-returning fluid on the tree, words began to appear on the book. Soul-returning fluid, soul-returning fluid. Such a treasure is rare. This is equivalent to a life. It's a pity that there is too little soul-returning fluid. At most, it can support the resurrection of experts below the Emperor God realm. Even so, it's a treasure that can save one's life. Grandmaster D murmured as he looked at the soul-returning fluid passionately. Such a treasure can be used as the finale of the auction. Ask that young man if he has more of such a treasure. As long as there is such a treasure, it will definitely be fought over. Forget it. I'll go over. He said immediately. It's Grandmaster D. The staff at the side was slightly shocked, and immediately nodded his head. Young man, this soul-returning fluid was consigned to the auction by you, right? Grandmaster D walked into the hall, and asked immediately when he saw Wang Xian and Emperor Star Maiden. Grandmaster D. Emperor Star Maiden was shocked to see the old man and greeted him respectfully. Grandmaster D nodded his head and looked at Wang Xian. Yes. Have you appraised it? Wang Xian nodded his head and asked. A life-saving divine item, a supreme treasure. I don't know if young master has such a treasure. Such a precious treasure will definitely attract crazy bids. Grandmaster D said with a smile. I only got 1 drop of soul-returning liquid back then. Wang Xian shook his head and revealed a hesitant look. Oh. Grandmaster D saw his hesitation and said, Young master, don't worry. Our imperial court will not covet young master Mo's treasure, haha. When I first obtained this liquid, I also obtained a few other types. I don't even know the effects of some of them. Upon hearing his words, Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before replying intentionally. He took out the constant liquid, endless flame, nirvana lightning liquid and vitality liquid. Grandmaster D's expression changed slightly, and he immediately held it in his hand. Good. What a pure flame. It can change a human's constitution. What a pure lightning. It can also change a human's constitution. What a spiritual energy. It can completely awaken the sentience of wild beasts and plants. What a huge life force. Just a single drop can instantly heal a peak undying God King. Grandmaster D's face was filled with astonishment, and he couldn't help but exclaim with his eyes wide open. These are all supreme treasures, he exclaimed. Upon hearing his exclamation, Wang Xian's eyes flickered, but he did not say a word. Young master, if all these supreme treasures are put up for auction at our Imperial Court auction house, we can auction the rest for free, except for the soul-returning liquid. What do you think? Grandmaster D said to Wang Xian immediately. Sure, but I have a request. I would like to use the equivalent value of the corpse of the abyss species, or elixir pills to settle the payment. Wang Xian nodded and said, No problem. Grandmaster D nodded immediately and waved his arm. These are the proof of your items. These are the slots for the auction the day after tomorrow. Great. Wang Xian nodded and took it with a smile. If you have any more of such treasures, you can come to our Imperial Court auction house to auction them. Grandmaster D said again. Sure, I only have these with me. Wang Xian smiled and shook his head. Grandmaster D looked into his eyes and confirmed that he was telling the truth. He nodded his head slightly. Wow, Wang Xian, you have so many good things. Bei Shuang could not help but comment when the two of them came out. It's a pity that I'm not an old man. Otherwise, I would consider keeping you as my mistress. Wang Xian said with a smile. Scram. I've recorded your conversation, and will send it to Inxian later. Emperor Star Princess stared at him. Wang Xian was speechless. Wang Xian followed Bei Shuang back to the plains. He did not go out for a stroll. The next day, he spent the entire day looking at the information on the smart computer. Is the Emperor Star Princess so powerful? How is this possible? How can she be so strong? Just as Wang Xian was staying at Bei Shuang's house, a group of women gathered in a side hall of the vast palace in the imperial court. They were all shocked. Compared to the central island, the requirements to enter the vast palace were stricter. To stay here, one had to be at least a 5th-level immortal king. For women, they had to be the wife and children of a 5th-level immortal king expert. Of course, for women who were at least a 5th-level immortal king, the imperial court would also be given a side hall. As the saying went, the imperial court had an outer island and an inner island. The inner island was further divided into the vast palace and the outer area. It could be said to be a ladder and a circle. The inner area of the vast palace was naturally the core. The younger generation of the core would naturally form their own circle and look down on the disciples outside. In the side hall, 3 women sat there with ugly expressions on their faces. The surrounding women were shocked. The strength of the 3 women was not weak among them. However, they were defeated by the Emperor Star Princess in a single move. Many people were shocked. That actress seems to have found a connection with the leader of a decent force. She must have exchanged some treasures from them. The 3 women said with sullen faces. Qingshan seems to have paid attention to the Emperor Star Princess in the past. He should know more. I've already asked Qingshan to come over. One of the women said with a frown. Alright, so what if he knows? In the grand competition 2 days later, no one will be able to stop the phoenix cry of the 9 heavens. In the middle, a woman in snow-white clothes said faintly. She stood up and walked out of the hall with a bored look on her face. Sister Plain, we just want to know how strong the Emperor Star Princess is. However, the Emperor Star Princess of our generation will definitely be yours. Some of the women said when they saw the woman in snow-white clothes leaving. Of course, the woman in snow-white clothes said indifferently. Chapter 2642. As the lady in white walked out, the rest of the ladies started discussing among themselves. They could be said to be the core of the current generation of women in the imperial court. They had the best resources and the best background. Back then, when the Emperor Star Lady suddenly rose to fame and became the hottest superstar in the Imperial Star domain, she had attracted their attention. They naturally looked down on a girl who raised a wild beast and was the daughter of a nobody in the imperial court. However, her rise had attracted the attention of many people. Many of the ladies were extremely jealous of the Emperor Star Lady. After all, many famous young men of the current generation liked her. Ladies, what can I do for you? At this time, a voice came from outside the door. A young man in green walked in with a haughty look on his face. Qingshan, you're here. We have something to ask you. How is the faction that the Emperor Star Lady is relying on? The 3 ladies asked immediately when they saw the young man walking over. The young man's face darkened when he heard their words. What's wrong? His eyes flashed as he asked. The Emperor Star Lady is very strong now. She might have reached the 8th order, or even the 9th order God Lord realm. The 3 ladies said solemnly. Their words caused the young man's face to change again. He walked to the side with a gloomy face. The faction that the Emperor Star Lady is relying on is called the Dragon Palace. They are very strong and are considered a first-rate faction. The young man said expressionlessly as he sat on a chair. First-rate faction? Will that first-rate faction listen to the Emperor Star Lady's orders? In the main hall, everyone's expression changed slightly. That's impossible. But even if they could send a 7th Order Immortal God King Realm expert, there are very few disciples in our generation who can match up to them. The young man clenched his fists. When the Emperor Star Lady was close to that faction, he had tried to destroy the Dragon Palace. Unfortunately, he had failed. In just a few years, the Dragon Palace had somehow improved to a shocking level. This kind of faction was not something that the younger generation could match up to. Doesn't that mean that the Emperor Star Lady has the right to fight for the position of Emperor? All the ladies in the hall were shocked. The young man sat there silently, his expression not looking good. Back then, when he tried to woo the Emperor Star Maiden, he had embarrassed him in front of everyone. He had said that if he couldn't get her, he would destroy her. Now, perhaps everyone will have to change their attitude towards the Emperor Star Maiden. In any case, I've never interacted with her before. Oh, by the way, are you interested in going to the auction tomorrow? Shall we go together? By the way, have you heard? This morning, a woman challenged many of our seniors. At this moment, one of the women changed the topic. The other woman immediately spoke as well. Obviously, she didn't want to talk about the Emperor Star Maiden anymore. Time passed quickly. A day had passed as Wang Xian looked at all kinds of rich information on the artificial intelligence system. Let's go. The auction will be held at noon. On the morning of the second day, the Emperor Star Maiden came to the courtyard where Wang Xian was staying and shouted, "He's here." Wang Xian walked out immediately with a face full of smiles. After this auction ended, the resources obtained would definitely allow him to advance another level. Once he did, he would have the battle prowess of a 9th Order Immortal God King. With such strength, he could be considered an expert in the Imperial Court. No matter how strong the Imperial Court was, they would at most have a few hundred 9th Order Immortal God Kings. Moreover, he had only intended to sell the soul-returning liquid. Now that he had sold a few more drops of divine liquid, the remaining resources should be able to increase the battle prowess of 4 to 5 9th Order Immortal God Kings. Let's go. The Emperor Star Maiden stood on the divine crane and waved at him. When the auction starts, if there's anything you like, I'll pay for it. Wang Xian said in a good mood. You said it yourself. The Emperor Star Maiden did not stand on ceremony with him, and narrowed her eyes. Of course. Wang Xian smiled and nodded his head. Hee, at least you're human. The Emperor Star Maiden could not help but laugh. Why are there so many people and so many experts? When Wang Xian and the group arrived above the auction, the Emperor Star Maiden exclaimed in surprise. The interval between the auctions was not long, but this time, the number of people had increased significantly, and there were many experts from the Imperial Court. It's better to have more experts. Wang Xian smiled. The more experts there were, the higher the price of the soul-returning liquid would be. The two of them leaped down from the divine crane and landed in the auction hall. Di Tianyao, you're here too. Haha. Grandmaster D said that there are a few supreme treasures here. Naturally, I have to come and take a look. The items this time are very precious. I heard that some elders and guardians are here. The chances of us getting it are a little slim. How can we not fight for such life-saving treasures? Moreover, there's more than one supreme treasure. However, with the appearance of the supreme treasures, the auction hall has run out of rooms. We can only go to the outside hall. Haha, not only you, but many seniors will be in the hall. When the two of them landed, they heard the discussions around them. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow and revealed a smile. He did not expect so many people to be here for his treasures. You're going to be rich. The Emperor Star Maiden whispered as she looked at Wang Xian. Hee, it's all right. Let's go to our room. Wang Xian smiled and took out a token. This was a private box given to him by the Grand Master D of the sect. As the consignor of several supreme treasures, it was only right for him to be given a private room. The Emperor Star Maiden nodded and the two of them walked to the side. Another familiar face. When Wang Xian and the Emperor Star Maiden walked towards the private room, he saw a group of dozens of girls walking towards them. The leader was a girl in white clothes. Beside her were three familiar figures. They were the three girls whom the Emperor Star Maiden had taught a lesson to previously. The Emperor Star Maiden looked over and her eyes flickered. Her aura was not weak at all. The group of girls in front also noticed the Emperor Star Maiden. They did not make way, nor did the Emperor Star Maiden avoid them. The leader of the girls in white clothes fixed her eyes on the Emperor Star Maiden and sized her up. When they met, the Emperor Star Maiden stopped in her tracks and remained unmoved. Emperor Star Maiden, I heard that you're very strong. I hope you won't disappoint me tomorrow. The girl in white clothes stared at the Emperor Star Maiden and said plainly, I will. The Emperor Star Maiden looked at the girl in white clothes and nodded. Aren't you going to make way? As soon as the Emperor Star Maiden finished her words, one of the three girls whom she had taught a lesson to spoke with a sullen face. I might have to trouble you to make way. Our private room is beside you. The Emperor Star Maiden lifted her head slightly and said plainly. Chapter 2643. Wonderful pop-up window for free reading. Huh. The Emperor Star Maiden's words caused the white-robed woman to be stunned. The surrounding people were also stunned. Private room. The girl who spoke to Emperor Star Maiden was taken aback, and her expression changed. You have a private room? You want a private room with your status? What a joke. The woman said with a cold smile on her face. Excuse me. Wang Xian watched from the side. He couldn't help but pick up the card in his hand, wave it off and walk away. Huh. The girls made way for him instinctively when they saw Wang Xian walking over. Click. Wang Xian came to the front of the private room and swiped the card in his hand. The door opened immediately. Beautiful Lady Emperor Star Maiden, please come in. Wang Xian pretended to be a gentleman as he made an inviting gesture towards her and said with a smile. Emperor Star Maiden couldn't hold back her smile as she walked in. Bam! The door closed and the girl's expressions changed. How did she get a private room? This, with her status? One of the girls couldn't help but ask. In normal auctions, it was still possible for them to get a private room with their status. But in this auction, how could they get one? There was news from yesterday that there would be several powerful treasures for sale in this auction, and one of them was a life-saving treasure. This made many elders and even protectors of the imperial court come. For such an auction, the private rooms were naturally reserved for the elders and guardians. Even some 7th or 8th order Immortal King realm experts might not be able to get a private room, but they had their own private room? Maybe they booked the private room in advance. The girl in white frowned, but didn't take it to heart. She walked to the seat beside her. That's so satisfying. I hate their arrogant attitude the most. Humph. Emperor Star Maiden entered the private room and said happily, Aren't you going to thank me for my cooperation? Wang Xian smiled and sat by the side. All right, thank you, Mr. Wang Xian. Emperor Star Maiden smiled. The two of them sat in the private room and waited quietly. There were many people in this auction. Wang Xian looked around and realized there were about 70 to 80,000 Divine King experts. Vaguely, there were some God King powerhouses that could pose a slight threat to him. The auction was about to start. One by one, the items were auctioned off. The items that had just been auctioned off also caused quite a bit of competition. The Soul Returning Elixir, Vitality Elixir, and so on were considered the finale items. They would only be auctioned at the end. Wang Xian had been waiting, but the Emperor Star Princess did not bid for anything. We're almost there. Many important figures of the Imperial Dynasty have come for your treasure. 2 hours later, it was finally the last few items. In this auction, there are a total of 6 ultimate treasures. Now let's start with the 6th. The 6th treasure is the drinking liquid. Drinking the drinking liquid can cause any non-sentient creature to gain sentience. Even if it's an ordinary plant, a single drop of it can give it sentience. If you give it to your battle pet, it can give it intelligence just like a beast. Also, according to Grandmaster D's speculation, it can enhance a person's power of understanding. This is a rare treasure. The starting bid is 100 square divine stones. Drinking liquid, endless flame, nirvana lightning liquid, vitality elixir, and soul returning elixir were Wang Xian's items. The remaining one should be the original finale item. The starting bid was 1 square divine stone. 1 square divine stone was equivalent to 10 rank 5 immortal king realm elixir pills. The starting bid was not low, but it was still an ultimate treasure of heaven and earth. 110. The auction started, and soon someone made a bid. In the end, the drinking liquid was bought by an Imperial Dynasty expert for 500 square divine stones. The next item was the endless flame. The endless flame could change a person's physique, granting them a strong fire attribute physique, and increase their cultivation speed by a few times. The starting bid for the endless flame was much higher, at 1,000 square divine stones. Moreover, the endless flame had also caused a commotion in the auction, with experts bidding one after another. In the end, the price was set at 12,000 square divine stones. I have enough resources for my own breakthrough. Wang Xian calculated the resources that 12,000 square divine stones could be exchanged for, and his eyes shone with excitement. The next item is the Nirvana Lightning Liquid. The effect of this Nirvana Lightning Liquid is similar to the Endless Flame, except for the lightning attribute. The auction for the Nirvana Lightning Liquid began, and this time, the price was much higher than the Endless Flame. It was sold for 18,000 square divine stones. The last 3 items, which are also the 3 that Master Emperor thinks are the most valuable. Now let's start with the third item, a drop of vitality liquid. After consuming it, anyone below the Void God Emperor realm can recover instantly, no matter how serious their injuries are. It's equivalent to a second life. The third treasure, the vitality liquid, was rated higher than the endless flame by Master Emperor. This treasure was equivalent to a second life, and it could recover to its peak in an instant. It was definitely a powerful treasure. The starting bid for the vitality liquid was 20,000 square divine stones. And in the end, it was bought by a person in a private room for 25,000 square divine stones. The one who made a move just now seems to be Guardian Yuan. It should be Guardian Yuan. Guardian Yuan is a peak god king, and such a treasure is very important to an expert of his level. After the sale of the vitality liquid, some people discussed softly. Guardian Yuan made a move. If not for him, the price might be higher. Emperor Star Princess whispered in the private room. Don't worry, this is a good price. Wang Xian squinted his eyes. He was very satisfied with this price. But there's a treasure that's even more valuable than the vitality liquid. I wonder what it is. He murmured. The second treasure is an offensive divine weapon, called the Slaying Gourd. The gourd can nurture sword chi, and when the sword chi is released, it has the destructive power of a peak immortal king. At this time, the second last treasure was taken out. On the stage, an old man held an ancient green gourd in his hand. The gourd looked extremely ordinary, but when the old man opened the cover of the gourd, an extremely sharp sword chi floated above it. The sword chi was green in color, and the sharpness of the sword radiance made one feel a little bone-chilling. This immortal slaying gourd can nurture a stream of sword chi every 10 years, and the sword chi can be accumulated. Moreover, the wind elemental law can speed up the nurturing of sword chi. Such a treasure is extremely powerful. The old man continued to introduce. So powerful. Doesn't that mean that the eternal God Lord can kill a 7th or 8th order immortal king with it? Inside the private room, Emperor Star Princess exclaimed in shock. It can't be done. The sword chi is too sharp, and anyone below the 5th order immortal king realm will not be able to withstand it. But this immortal slaying gourd is indeed a rare treasure. Wang Xian said slowly as he stared at the immortal slaying gourd. Chapter 2644. This celestial slaying gourd can only be used by 5th order immortal king and above. The weak will not be able to withstand its sharpness. Such a treasure can be used as a powerful trump card and killing move. The old man on the stage also reminded. The weak would not be able to handle such a powerful weapon. The starting bid is 30,000 square divine stones. The highest bidder wins. Experts, please place your bids. The bidding for the celestial slaying gourd began. 31,000 square divine stones. Just as he finished his words, someone made a bid. 32,000 square divine stones. 33,000 square divine stones. 35,000 square divine stones. Voices came from the surrounding boxes. Such a treasure would definitely be a great killing move for those below the pinnacle of a mortal king realm. The experts made their bids one after another. Many of them looked determined to get it. 36,000 square divine stones. Wang Xian sat in the box, squinted his eyes and started bidding. Ever since he got the progenitor tree and knew its effects, Wang Xian was very interested in such a plant treasure. This celestial slaying gourd could nurture sword radiance. It was indeed miraculous. As for the gourd, it was a type of plant. Could it evolve and be upgraded? If it had the destructive power of a divine king after upgrading, it would be even more powerful. Since it could not be upgraded, this celestial slaying gourd could also be a trump card. 40,000 square divine stones. After Wang Xian made his bid, a voice came from the box in front. Haofeng, not bad. Looks like you got quite a lot of divine stones from the Eternal Holy Kingdom. Tisk tsk, you're really rich. In the box in front, a dozen middle-aged and old men were sitting there. When they saw a middle-aged man bidding, they were slightly surprised. Haha, I'm just lucky. It just so happens that I don't have a life-saving trump card. This celestial slaying gourd is mine. The middle-aged man smiled, full of confidence. Haofeng, you're pretty confident. An old man looked at him and asked plainly. Hehe. It's mainly because this thing is useless to the guardians. There won't be many guardians competing for it. I should be able to get it. The middle-aged man looked at the old man and said respectfully, the guardians probably won't compete with you. The old man smiled faintly. 41,000 cubes. However, at this moment a voice rang out. The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard it, and looked towards the private room behind him. 44,000 cubes. Just as he finished speaking, the voice continued. 45,000. The middle-aged man frowned slightly. 46,000. The other side immediately followed. 48,000. The middle-aged man's face was grave, and he immediately followed. Who was in that private room? Looks like you've met your match, Haofeng. A middle-aged man in the private room looked over and said with a smile. 50,000 cubes. After the middle-aged man called Haofeng shouted, the voice on the other side continued. Any higher, and it won't be worth it. In the private room, the protector who spoke just now said indifferently. The middle-aged man's expression also changed slightly. He gritted his teeth and said, 52,000. 53,000. As soon as he finished speaking, the other side immediately followed. This caused the middle-aged man's expression to turn ugly. He shook his head slightly and looked at the private room. Which elder is in that private room? So rich? He said with a frown. No, it's two disciples who look younger. Interesting. The old protector looked over and his eyes flickered. Two young disciples? How can a young disciple have so many divine stones? The middle-aged man was taken aback and was shocked. The price is already too high. It's not suitable to continue competing. The old Dharma protector reminded indifferently. The middle-aged man nodded his head and felt a little indignant. I reckon many old fellows will be competing for the next item. The old protector straightened his back slightly and murmured, what a tycoon! In the private room where Wang Xian and the rest were, the Emperor's Star Maiden said enviously when she saw Wang Xian winning the bid for the celestial slaying gourd. I've used up some of the divine stones from selling the vitality fluid and undying flames. I'll have to rely on the last item to recoup my losses. Wang Xian chuckled softly. The last item was also the last supreme treasure for today's auction. A supreme treasure that could save one's life was the dream of all the experts. Soul-returning fluid was a true second life. When the auction for the soul-returning fluid started, there weren't many bidders. There were only 4 old men. As the 4 old men spoke, the rest of the people in the auction hall watched quietly. These were the 4 protectors. Each of them was a real big shot in the imperial court. They were the strongest existences below the emperor god level. The bidding for the soul-returning fluid was very fast, and ended in less than a minute. The final price was 93,000 square divine stones. Wang Xian's eyes lit up with excitement when he saw this number. After this upgrade, the Dragon Palace could increase the combat power of 6 to 7 ninth level immortal kings. It was the right decision to come to the imperial court this time. If he brought something like the soul-returning embryo fruit, even the Void God Emperor would come. Of course, Wang Xian wouldn't dare to bring it out. Young master, this is the celestial slaying gourd for you to bid on. These are the remaining resources from the auction. I've already exchanged them for elixir pills. After the auction ended, a staff member came to the private room and handed the treasures and resources to Wang Xian. Wang Xian nodded his head and received it with flickering eyes. He held onto 2 fist-sized celestial slaying gourds and injected waves of what attribute energy into them. In an instant, Wang Xian could feel the green celestial slaying gourd vibrating gently. This is a treasure. Wang Xian's eyes flashed with excitement. With a wave of his hand, the celestial slaying gourd disappeared instantly. At the same time, a green gourd appeared on the progenitor tree. It wasn't located below the progenitor tree but above it. It was at the same level as the boundless wood and the soul-returning wood. What surprised Wang Xian was that the branches of the boundless wood and nirvana thunder tree were gently wrapped around it. A sword aura came out from the celestial slaying gourd and circled around it. Let's go. While Wang Xian was still sensing the wonders of the celestial slaying gourd, he heard Emperor Star Maiden's voice. All right. Wang Xian's lips curved into a smile as he regained his composure and followed her out of the private room. When he walked out of the private room, he noticed a few pairs of eyes looking in their direction. Wang Xian swept a glance and didn't pay much attention to them as he walked out. Yun Haofeng, there are indeed 2 young people in that private room. Are they disciples of the imperial court? That lady looks familiar. A few middle-aged men walked out from the private room in front. One of them raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise. She's my niece. As for the young man beside her, let's get to know each other. As the middle-aged man spoke, he flew up into the sky immediately. In an instant, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Wang Xian, Emperor Star Maiden, and the rest. Emperor Star Maiden looked at the middle-aged man and was shocked. Chapter 2645. There was no pop-up window for free reading. Second uncle. Emperor Star Maiden looked at the middle-aged man in shock as she called out to him. The middle-aged man who suddenly appeared before Wang Xian had a head of silver hair. He looked cold and had a smile on his face. The way Emperor Star Maiden addressed him made Wang Xian take a closer look at the young man before him. A 5th Order Undying God King. He thought to himself. With such strength and seniority, he could be considered one of the top experts in the imperial court. Emperor Star Maiden, right? Did you guys buy the celestial slaying gourd? The middle-aged man looked at Emperor Star Maiden with a smile. Second uncle, my friend bought it. The Emperor Star Maiden looked at her second uncle with slight surprise as she spoke. She only knew that this uncle of hers had spoken less than 3 sentences to her, including what he had just said. Oh, ask your friend if he's willing to part with it. I'll buy it at the auction price. The middle-aged man said to Emperor Star Maiden as he looked at Wang Xian. He could sense that Wang Xian was very young. As for his strength, he couldn't tell. This piqued his curiosity. Emperor Star Maiden was taken aback, as she looked like she was in a difficult position. Haofeng, haha. Are you still not satisfied? At this time, a few middle-aged men flew over and spoke to the middle-aged man with smiles. The war is about to start. I have to get something to protect myself. The middle-aged man smiled faintly at them. How about this little brother? You're still young and don't need the celestial slaying gourd. If you agree, I can give you some pointers. Of course, you can also find someone stronger to guide you. The middle-aged man landed on Wang Xian and asked plainly. I'm sorry. Wang Xian shook his head. The middle-aged man frowned as he looked at Emperor Star Maiden. Given your strength, I don't think you need it. This little brother should have some background. Let's form a good relationship. He pondered for a moment before continuing. He had been longing for the celestial slaying gourd ever since he knew about it. He had obtained great opportunities and possessed a large number of divine stones. Such a powerful trump card would increase his strength by leaps and bounds. Wang Xian looked at him and shook his head. He's still a little young. This little brother shouldn't be a disciple of the imperial court. Haofeng, I think you should look for the elders of his family to trade with. When the middle-aged man saw this scene, he smiled and patted the middle-aged man on the shoulder. The silver-haired middle-aged man looked at Wang Xian coldly and nodded his head. As for threatening them here, he didn't dare to do so. The imperial court had its own rules. Looking at his cold expression, Wang Xian let out a sarcastic laugh. What a disappointment. Let's go. The silver-haired middle-aged man took a deep look at Wang Xian before speaking to his companion beside him. Di Haofeng. However, right at this moment, an incomparably chilly voice sounded out. Who? When Di Haofeng heard this voice, he immediately frowned and looked over. When Wang Xian heard this voice, he suddenly found it extremely familiar. He looked up and saw an incredibly familiar figure. North Frost. Sister Beishuang knows my second uncle? The Emperor Star Maiden looked over, and a look of astonishment appeared on her face. Wang Xian stood there and watched with flickering eyes. Around them, some people were also attracted by this chilly voice and looked over with doubts. North Frost, you. When Di Haofeng saw North Frost's chilly gaze, his face instantly turned ugly. It's time to pay back the humiliation from 30,000 years ago. You're really good at hiding these few days. North Frost locked her chilling eyes on him as she spoke with a murderous look. North Frost, I merely asked someone to teach you a lesson more than 30,000 years ago. How could you be so petty to remember it for more than 30,000 years? I've also heard that you've obtained the cultivation method not long ago. Congratulations. Di Haofeng said in a deep voice with a sullen expression. Then you can treat me as that petty person. North Frost sneered. The next moment she made her move. A sparring array instantly shrouded Di Haofeng, following which, before Di Haofeng could react, North Frost had already dashed in front of him. Don't worry, I know all the rules of the imperial court. 30,000 years ago, a dignified prince like you was suppressed by me. At that time, you even wanted to propose marriage to my North Chuan sect. After I rejected you, you found someone to bully me when I was lonely. As a dignified prince, even a woman like me can't match your breadth of mind. North Frost grabbed his neck with her frost claws, immobilizing him. Pfft. As soon as she finished her sentence, her sharp claws pierced through his shoulder. North Frost, you stop it. Di Haofeng could feel the excruciating pain on his face, as he couldn't help but yell in a low voice. Stop it. North Frost's eyes were cold as she grabbed one of his arms with her frost claws. Pfft. The next moment, she tore it off with her powerful strength. A painful scream was heard. Elder, save me. Di Haofeng's eyes were filled with fear as he yelled frantically. He didn't look as cool and cold as before. It's just a spar. We're from the same generation, so I won't take your life. Why? Are you relying on your background again? North Frost stared at him disdainfully as she waved her frost claws again. Pfft. Another scream was heard as a large amount of blood flowed from his body. Di Haofeng's face was extremely embarrassed. I could suppress him 30,000 years ago, and I can do the same now. North Frost stared at him coldly. Alright, that's enough. The sudden eruption of sparring caused everyone in the surroundings to be slightly stunned. Everyone looked over in astonishment. When they saw Di Haofeng being abused, they were even more shocked. Their mouths were wide open. Di Haofeng was also a celebrity in the imperial court. He was the crown prince 30,000 years ago, and his strength now far surpassed those of the same generation. But now he was being abused by a woman. An elder glanced at him and said softly with flickering eyes. Trash. North Frost heard the voice of an elder from the imperial court and spat out 2 words at Di Haofeng. Crack, crack, crack. The next moment, the frost on the frost claws that were grabbing Di Haofeng spread towards his chest. It formed 2 huge words. Trash. In particular, the 2 words were emitting a frosty glow and were exceptionally eye-catching. Seeing this, everyone was taken aback. Some of them even couldn't help but laugh out loud. Wang. North Frost waved her arm and dispelled the spar. Ah, North Frost, you're courting death. Di Haofeng looked at the two huge words on his chest and felt dizzy as he roared. Useless trash that only knows how to bark. North Frost waved her arm, and a force landed on his chest. Di Haofeng's expression changed drastically as he retreated immediately. Haofeng. Beside him, Di Haofeng and a few others frowned and appeared behind him instantly to catch him. Humph. North Frost snorted and turned to leave. But at this moment, she paused as she noticed Wang Xian. Master. Chapter 2646. Master. Bei Shuang's voice rang out. When she saw Wang Xian, she retracted her arrogance and revealed a faint smile. She flew to Wang Xian obediently and greeted him respectfully. Wang Xian looked at her and smiled faintly. What? However, at this time, the young man who was being supported by two middle-aged men in the air was shocked when he saw this scene. Master? That young man? His eyes widened and his face was filled with disbelief. How could this young man be Bei Shuang's master? Could this young man be the leader of Dragon Palace? Di Haofeng's face was clouded. This was something he had never expected. Yesterday, when he heard about Bei Shuang, he was slightly taken aback and immediately looked into it. In the end, he did not expect that the woman he suppressed, the woman who shone like a shooting star and fell like a shooting star, would rise again. And she was even stronger and more heaven-defying than before. She had the battle prowess of an 8th Order Immortal God King. But he also did not expect that the person who made Bei Shuang return to her peak was that young man. The young man who wanted to trade the immortal slaying gourd with his status and strength. Looking at the huge frost-covered words in front of him, his face turned ugly. That Bei Shuang is so powerful. She was a genius from 30,000 years ago and suppressed everyone of her generation in the Imperial Star domain. Didn't she die? She went quiet because she had no way to cultivate. I heard that she found a master in the past 2 years and made her return to her peak. She even has the battle prowess of an 8th Order Immortal God King. Many say she has the potential to become a great emperor. SSS, who would have thought that the genius would be so terrifying now? That young man is her master? Dragon Palace's Dragon King, an 8th Order Immortal God King, and the leader of a powerful faction. He looks young, but he's not as simple as he looks. The Frost Goddess with the potential to become a great emperor is so powerful? It's been a long time since someone with the potential to become a great emperor appeared. Around them, some of the experts saw this scene and were slightly shocked as they discussed. Bei Shuang had shaken the region more than 30,000 years ago. Now he had returned with great strength and was toying with an expert of the imperial court, causing him to lose face. Such strength caused many people's hearts to tremble. Even the few old guardians of the imperial court took a deep look at Bei Shuang and Wang Xian, who was beside her. Is everything settled? Wang Xian asked Bei Shuang without a care when he sensed the gazes around him. It's settled, master. Bei Shuang nodded. Let's go, said Wang Xian with a smile as he looked at the Emperor Star Maiden. All right. The Emperor Star Maiden smiled sweetly and nodded. The three of them flew directly towards the grassland. That young man is actually the leader of the Dragon Palace, Bei Shuang's master. And the leader of the power on the Emperor Star Maiden ranking? Down below, the group of women raised their heads and looked up in shock. The woman in snow-white clothes also frowned slightly. Her eyes revealed a trace of seriousness. She had learned a little about the Dragon Palace yesterday. It was one of the stronger forces among the first-class forces. Based on her guess, given the strength and status of the Emperor Star Maiden, even if she had some status in the Dragon Palace, it wouldn't be too high. However, she did not expect the leader of the Dragon Palace to accompany her personally. That wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was the disciple of the Dragon King, the Frost Goddess. From the comments of the surrounding experts of the Imperial Court, one could guess a thing or two. If she's really strong, I might have to be careful. The woman in snow-white clothes murmured. This Emperor Star Maiden is probably going to rise. The other young men and women of the current generation also thought to themselves. She had the support of a powerful force, and knew an expert with the potential of a great emperor. Many of them were far, far away from it. She must be a sugar daddy of that young man. There were also some jealous women who muttered softly, I have to go back to the courtyard to settle some matters. Star Maiden, call me tomorrow. Wang Xian said directly when they returned to the Emperor Star Maiden's house. All right. Where's Sister Bei Shuang? Do you want me to bring you around? The Emperor Star Maiden nodded and asked. No need. Bei Shuang shook her head at her. Wang Xian entered the room and closed the door immediately. He sat on the bed and took out elixir pills excitedly. His eyes shone with excitement. I'm about to break through. It's going to be much smoother than I thought. He murmured. This trip was really worth it. Gulp. Drops of elixir pills entered his mouth and were quickly converted into dragon energy. Boom. Half an hour later, his body shook and a majestic aura surged out from his body. Wang Xian immediately retracted his aura. Ding. Congratulations to host for leveling up to 3rd Order Immortal God King. The system's notification sounded. Wang Xian opened his eyes slowly, and a 7-colored divine dragon was swimming in his pupils. Name, Wang Xian. Race, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Divine Dragon, 1 with the Dragon level, 3rd Order Immortal God King, 7th Transformation of Divine Dragon Transformation, Origin Source, 2144344/50000000 Superpower. Dominate the marine animals, rule all marine animals lower than your own level, devour living beings, extract origin source from living beings. 5 Elements Control Art of Cultivation, Divine Dragon Transformation Superpower, Soul Assimilation, Spirit Attachment, Yin-Yang 5 Elements. Dragon Eyes Dharma. 5 Elements Grindstone, Dragon Country in the Palm, Dragon Head Descending, 10,000 Miles Dragon Body, Yin-Yang 2 Poles, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Bowl Divine Dragon Tail Whip. Law of Substance, Metal, Wood, Water, Fire, Earth, Light, Darkness, 3rd Order God Kingdom, Dragon Palace. Own Dragon Palace. Level 7 Dragon Palace Members. For 10842-inch 3rd Order Immortal God King Realm, 9th Order Immortal God King Realm Battle Prowess. Wang Xian stood up slowly as the 7-colored divine dragon in his eyes gradually dissipated. Phew! I'm one step closer to the peak of the bedazzling starry sky. When I return, the Dragon Palace will be comparable to a large sect. Wang Xian murmured. Oh right. I wonder what's the situation with the Immortal Slaying Gourd. Wang Xian recalled that the Immortal Slaying Gourd was growing on the progenitor tree. He could sense that the Immortal Slaying Gourd was entangled by the boundless wood and the Nirvana Lightning Tree's branches. One was Fire Sword Chi, and the other was Lightning Sword Chi. Together with the Green Wind Sword Chi, they revolved around the Immortal Slaying Gourd. The power of the Immortal Slaying Gourd had not changed for the time being. However, it had increased from 1 Sword Chi to 3. This Immortal Slaying Gourd is not simple for it to be located on the progenitor tree. I've picked up a treasure again. Wang Xian murmured as a smile appeared on his face. This could be said to be a double blessing. Chapter 2647. Boom, boom, boom. Just as Wang Xian and Imperial Star Maiden were conversing, a powerful aura swept over, and the sky rumbled. Wang Xian looked over, and his eyes were filled with shock. Everyone in the square looked towards the center, and soon, their mouths were agape, and their faces were filled with shock. In front of the center, 3,000 to 4,000 young, middle-aged, and old men were flying over, each of them exuding a prideful aura. Among them, the weakest was a peak god lord. The strongest was an 8th or 9th Order Immortal King, and there was even a peak Immortal King expert. 3,000 to 4,000 people flew over in a row, and their aura was intimidating. Their aura was not the kind of powerful pressure, but the kind of invincible aura. A kind of invincibility, an intense confidence that would make the weak feel inferior. This kind of aura was hard to cultivate, and this kind of aura would greatly amplify one's fighting prowess. I'm invincible. These are the princes and princesses of our imperial court in the past. Such powerful aura. They are the princes and princesses of our imperial court in the past tens of millions of years. The one leading them has already become a protector and is in his twilight years. These are all geniuses that dominated their respective eras. In front of the platform, all the imperial court disciples looked at the figures in front of them with awe and respect. Out of those 3,000, any one of them was an existence that dominated their generation in the Imperial Star domain. They were the most dazzling existences of their generation. The princes and princesses represented the two most outstanding people in the Imperial Star domain. So. When the 3,000 princes and princesses stood at the front, another group flew out from behind. Similarly, over 10,000 people flew out from behind, and there were still young middle-aged and old men. They were also the shining figures of their respective eras, the most outstanding batch of people in their generation. There were even some who caught up and surpassed the princes and princesses of their generation. These people were also outstanding disciples who participated in the competition in the past. Over 10,000 people had arrived, and 80% of them had reached the Immortal King realm. In other words, there were over 10,000 Immortal King experts. Ring the bell. The group of Imperial Court experts arrived, and the white-haired protector in the lead, who was holding a walking stick and had wrinkles all over his face, said softly. Although his voice was gentle, it reached everyone's ears. This was an existence that had lived for nearly 10 million years, an old man past his prime, and a former prince. Boom. A warning bell. Boom. Second bell strikes the world. Boom. World suppressing 3 bells. The grand competition of the Imperial Court's 10,000 third-generation disciples begins. As soon as the old man's voice fell, the huge ancient bell in the center began to ring automatically. Moreover, a pale voice came from the divine clock. The sound of the bell was like a voice from beyond the heavens, striking directly at the soul. When Wuxia heard the voice, he was slightly shocked. What kind of divine artifact is this? It's actually so terrifying. 1 bell to warn the world, 2 bells to awe the world, 3 bells to suppress the world. And the 100,000th and third generation of the imperial dynasty? In other words, the imperial court has existed for more than 500 million years. Wuxia's heart skipped a beat. The powerful sound of the bell had a long history. All participating disciples, please enter the stage. The rest of you can just watch from the stairs. Don't hold back. The hosting protector revealed a smile on his aged face as he spoke plainly. Yes, protector. Some disciples responded immediately and leaped towards the empty space in the center of the square. One by one, the disciples entered the square. Soon millions of disciples landed in the square. Us old guys are the happiest to be able to see the imperial court prospering. Hee. The old protector chuckled as he looked at the hundreds of thousands of disciples below. Boom! His walking stick landed softly on the ground with a loud thud. Next, the world-suppressing bell will test your strength and wisdom. Only 100 to 150 princes will remain in the square. All disciples must work hard. Even if you can't make it to the top, those who perform outstandingly will have a high chance of being taken in as disciples by the experts present. At the same time, the voice of the old protector rang. The grand competition of the imperial court's disciples wasn't just a series of battles. It was a selection process that lasted a few days, or even a dozen days. With a powerful divine artifact, the selection process would be very simple, and there would be no unfairness at all. Yes, the disciples immediately responded in a loud voice. Spread out immediately, 500 meters apart. The old protector said emotionlessly. All the disciples immediately spread out across the square. World-suppressing bell test. The old protector commanded softly. Wung. The bell in the center vibrated gently. Streaks of lightning blanketed the sky. In the next moment, a crack was torn in the surrounding space, forming a separate domain. Crackle. Bolts of lightning fell on everyone's body, and lightning appeared in front of the millions of disciples. The lightning turned illusory and transformed into human figures. Each of the human figures possessed the fighting strength of a Tier 4 Eternal Almighty. The first round of the test begins. Defeat the opponents in front of you. The old protector said. Yes. Kill. Fight. All the disciples knew that the test had begun. They fixed their eyes on the opponents in front of them and charged forward. This world-suppressing bell is really mystical. Wuxia looked at the scene before him and glanced at the world-suppressing bell in the center. The test had begun. The first round would eliminate 99% of the participants. The lightning of a Tier 4 Eternal Almighty is of no threat to the Star Princess. Bei Shuang looked at the Emperor Star Princess and said plainly, "No threat at all." Wang Xian nodded and glanced over. At this moment, the dragon blood sword appeared in the hands of the Emperor Star Princess. She swung it at the lightning figure in front of her. A wave of energy swept over, and the lightning figure collapsed instantly. There were many who could destroy the lightning figure with a single strike. Some of them looked extremely relaxed. Those who were more relaxed lifted their heads slightly and waited for more lightning figures to appear after 10 seconds. 10 seconds later, 2 lightning figures appeared with the same strength as before. The Emperor Star Princess also swung her arm and destroyed them instantly. 10 seconds later, 3 more appeared. The first round of the test is a little boring. The disciples who are truly capable can't perform. I almost fell asleep during the test. Hehe, you're really good at bragging. The first round of the test is just a screening. Some of the disciples won't reveal their trump cards. Oh, I'm more optimistic about Emperor Spirit Song. His strength should be at Tier 7 Eternal Almighty now, right? I'm more optimistic about my nephew Di Ming. My brother came to me yesterday, and I gave him a treasure. Now Di Ming has also broken through to Tier 7 Eternal Almighty. Realm is just one aspect. Actual combat and strength are also important. In front of them, the former princes, princesses, and supreme talents were chatting with smiles on their faces. Chapter 2648. There was no pop-up window for free reading. Boom, boom, boom. Just as Wang Xian and Imperial Star Maiden were conversing, a powerful aura swept over, and the sky rumbled. Wang Xian looked over, and his eyes were filled with shock. Everyone in the square hurriedly looked towards the center of the square. Soon, their mouths were slightly agape, and their faces were filled with shock. 3,000 to 4,000 young, middle-aged, and old men were flying over, each of them exuding a prideful aura. Among them, the weakest was a peak god lord. The strongest had 8th or 9th order Immortal King Realm experts, and there was even a peak Immortal King Realm expert. 3,000 to 4,000 people flew over in a row, and their aura was intimidating. Their aura was not the kind of powerful pressure, but the kind of invincible aura, a kind of invincibility and intense confidence that would make the weak feel inferior. This kind of aura was hard to cultivate, and this kind of aura would greatly amplify one's fighting prowess. I'm invincible. These are the princes and princesses of our imperial court in the past, such powerful aura. They are the princes and princesses of our imperial court in the past tens of millions of years. The one leading them has already become a protector and is in his twilight years. These are all geniuses that dominated their respective eras. In front of the platform, all the imperial court disciples looked at the figures in front of them with awe and respect. Out of those 3,000, any one of them was an existence that dominated their generation in the imperial star domain. They were the most dazzling existences of their era. The princes and princesses represented the 2 most outstanding people in the imperial star domain. So. When the 3,000 princes and princesses stood in front, another group flew out from behind. Similarly, over 10,000 people flew out from behind, and there were still young, middle-aged, and old men. They were also the shining figures of their respective eras, the most outstanding batch of people in their era. There were even some who caught up and surpassed the princes and princesses of their generation. These people were also outstanding disciples who participated in the competition in the past. Over 10,000 people had arrived, and 80% of them had reached the Immortal King Realm. In other words, there were over 10,000 Immortal King Realm experts. Ring the bell. The group of Imperial Court experts arrived, and the white-haired protector in the lead, who was holding a walking stick and had wrinkles all over his face, said softly. Although his voice was gentle, it reached everyone's ears. This was an existence that had lived for nearly 10 million years, an old man past his prime, and a former prince. Boom. A warning bell. Boom. Second bell strikes the world. Boom. World suppressing 3 bells. The grand competition of the Imperial Court's 10,000 third-generation disciples begins. As soon as the old man's voice fell, the huge ancient bell in the center began to ring automatically. Moreover, a pale voice came from the divine clock. The sound of the bell was like a voice from beyond the heavens, striking directly at the soul. When Wang Xian heard the voice, he was slightly shocked. What kind of divine artifact is this? It's actually so terrifying. 1 bell to warn the world, 2 bells to awe the world, 3 bells to suppress the world. And the 100,000th and 3rd generation of the imperial dynasty? In other words, the imperial court has existed for more than 500 million years. Wang Xian's heart skipped a beat. The powerful sound of the bell had a long history. All participating disciples, please enter the stage. The rest of you can just watch from the stairs. Don't hold back. The hosting protector revealed a smile on his aged face as he spoke plainly. Yes, protector. Some disciples responded immediately and leaped towards the empty space in the center of the square. One by one, the disciples entered the square. Soon, millions of disciples landed in the square. Us old guys are the happiest to be able to see the imperial court prospering. Hee. The old protector chuckled as he looked at the hundreds of thousands of disciples below. Boom! His walking stick landed softly on the ground with a loud thud. Next, the world-suppressing bell will test your strength and wisdom. Only 100 to 150 princes will remain in the square. All disciples must work hard. Even if you can't make it to the top, those who perform outstandingly will have a high chance of being taken in as disciples by the experts present. At the same time, the voice of the old protector rang. The grand competition of the imperial court's disciples wasn't just a series of battles. It was a selection process that lasted a few to a dozen days. With a powerful divine artifact, the selection process would be very simple, and there would be no unfairness at all. Yes, the disciples immediately responded in a loud voice. Spread out immediately, 500 meters apart. The old protector said emotionlessly. All the disciples immediately spread out across the square. World-suppressing bell test. The old protector exclaimed softly. Wang. The world-suppressing bell in the center vibrated gently. Streaks of lightning blanketed the sky. In the next moment, a crack was torn in the surrounding space, forming a separate domain. Crackle! Bolts of lightning fell on everyone's body, and lightning appeared in front of the millions of disciples. The lightning turned illusory and transformed into human figures. Each of the human figures possessed the fighting strength of a Tier 4 Eternal Almighty. The first test begins. Defeat the opponents in front of you. The old protector said. Yes. Kill. Fight. All the disciples knew the test had begun. They stared at the opponents in front of them and charged at them. This world-suppressing bell is magical. Wang Xian looked at the scene before him and glanced at the world-suppressing bell in the center. The test had begun. The first round would eliminate 99% of the candidates. The lightning of a Tier 4 Eternal Almighty is no threat to the Star Princess. Bei Shuang looked at the Emperor Star Princess and said plainly, no threat at all. Wang Xian nodded and looked over. At this moment, the dragon blood sword appeared in the hands of the Emperor Star Princess. She swung it at the lightning figure in front of her. A wave of energy swept over, and the lightning figure collapsed instantly. There were many who could destroy the lightning figure with a single strike. Some looked extremely relaxed. Those who were more relaxed lifted their heads slightly and waited for the next figure to appear 10 seconds later. 10 seconds later, 2 more lightning figures appeared, with the same strength as the previous one. The Emperor Star Princess also swung her arm and destroyed them instantly. 10 seconds later, 3 more appeared. The first test is a little boring. The disciples who are truly capable can't show their strength. I almost fell asleep during the test. Hee, you are really good at bragging. The first test is just a screening. Some of the disciples won't reveal their trump cards. Oh, I'm more optimistic about Emperor Spirit Song. His strength should be at Tier 7 Eternal Almighty now, right? I'm more optimistic about my nephew Di Ming. My brother came to me yesterday and I gave him a treasure. Now, Di Ming has also broken through to Tier 7 Eternal Almighty. Realm is just one aspect. Actual combat and strength are also important. At the front, The former princes, princesses, and supreme talents were chatting with smiles on their faces. Chapter 2649. There was no pop-up window for free reading. Kill. Boom. Go to hell. In the square in front of the vast palace, roars filled with fighting spirit rang out. In front of them, the experts were chatting with smiles on their faces. This made the atmosphere much more relaxed. Look, Di Su Zhuang, Di Jiu Di Ming, and Di Spirit Song are so strong. As soon as the lightning shadow appeared, they destroyed it. Look at the corner. The Emperor Star Lady is so strong too. She's a famous celebrity in the Imperial Star region. She earns a lot of divine stones in one concert. Her strength is terrifying too. Di Qingshan is probably one of the top disciples in this generation. Hey, who are those two young men over there? Could they be this year's dark horse? The people who came to watch the ceremony were in a heated discussion. The people who were watching the ceremony from the stairs could clearly see everything that was happening in the hall. The strengths of some of the disciples were immediately revealed. This was especially true for the few disciples who were more popular. They easily killed the lightning phantoms one after another. It was clear who was stronger. The imperial court had to pick about 100 disciples from the millions of disciples. It could be said to be 1 in 10,000. In fact, it wasn't just 1 in 10,000. These millions of disciples were chosen from hundreds of millions, or even billions of imperial court disciples. There was also a prerequisite: the imperial court's elite disciples. The imperial court's territory belonged to the imperial court's disciples. There were more than 100 billion young disciples. It could be said that the entire imperial court had gathered here. To have the strength of a second or third order eternal god, Lord at the age of 5,000, was already considered outstanding. As time passed, the disciples were eliminated one by one and transported out by the world-suppressing bell. They were slightly unwilling to accept it. They looked at the disciples who were still fighting and shook their heads. They were all geniuses and knew how far they could go. Di Haosong, your daughter is not bad. Looks like she'll have a place this time. At the front, a young lady said to the middle-aged man beside her. Huh. My daughter? My kid is useless. What about my daughter? Which one are you talking about? The middle-aged man called Di Haosong was confused. He's really a playboy. Maybe he doesn't even know how many sons he has now, Her gaze landed on the Emperor Star Princess. The Emperor Star Princess should be one of the favorites for the Emperor Star Princess. Her strength is not bad, and I heard that she has a powerful faction supporting her. Oh, Emperor Star Maiden, I remember now. Di Haosong's gaze landed on the Emperor Star Maiden as his eyes brightened. Not bad, not bad. To be able to grow to this level without my guidance, this daughter is not bad. How ironic. It's bad luck to have a father like you. The woman beside him shook her head. Haha, how could it be unlucky? It should be an honor. We really need to nurture him well from now on. Di Haosong narrowed his eyes slightly. He used to be a prince, and was called a dissolute wastrel by others. Women were counted in tens of thousands. Apart from his wife, who was often with him, and his wife's sons and daughters were often raised, the rest of his children were rarely seen. This was the first time he had noticed this outstanding daughter of his. If she could really get a good ranking, and even become the Emperor Star Princess, he would have to nurture her well. He knew the potential of an Emperor Star Princess, and a disciple who could get a good ranking. Without exaggerating, she was the future of the imperial court. Big brother, your daughter is not simple. At this moment, Di Haofeng beside the woman looked at Di Haosong and said expressionlessly, Oh, how is she not simple? Di Haosong was interested and asked right away. My niece is very close to a top-tier faction, and the leader of that faction is the master of the Frost Goddess. Di Haofeng said with a sunken expression. Frost Goddess? Di Haosong's brow rose up. Take a look at the information on the AI. Your brother was taught a terrible lesson by the Frost Goddess. The woman beside him smiled. It seems like many things have happened in the dozen years that I was in seclusion. Di Haosong smiled and took out the AI to check some information. Oh. Soon he raised his eyebrows and his eyes sparkled. All right, 123 disciples have passed the assessment. Among them, 20 to 30 are not required to participate in the next assessment due to their age. All of you will be rewarded by the imperial court. Before long a voice sounded. At this moment, the Emperor Star Princess had also destroyed the encirclement of more than 160 lightning shadows. Dong! As the voice fell, the world suppression bell rang. Bolts of lightning surrounded the 100 figures in the field. As for the remaining 23, they were relatively younger, around 1 to 2,000 years old, and had decent talents. As they had started cultivating late, there was no need for them to participate in the next assessment. The disciples who defeated more than 150 lightning shadows will stand aside and watch. The 10 of you are qualified to compete for the position of the prince and princess. Of course, the rest of you are also qualified to challenge them. The other 90 disciples will participate in the ranking battle. The top 10 will be able to challenge these disciples. The old protector announced plainly. Yes, protector. The Emperor Star Maiden and the other 9 disciples couldn't help but reveal looks of excitement. Their figures flashed, and they immediately moved to the side. Mother! Wang Xian! The Emperor Star Princess flew to the front of Wang Xian and called out with a beaming face. Great, our Star Princess has finally grown up. The Emperor Star Princess's mother also patted her head happily with a smile on her face. Mother, I'll definitely be the princess this time. When the time comes, we will live in this palace. The Emperor Star Princess lifted her head slightly and clenched her fists. Ha ha ha, Meiwan, you've taught a good daughter. At this moment, laughter was heard from the side. Ha! The Emperor Star Princess's mother raised her eyebrows as she turned to the side and looked at the handsome middle-aged man. Husband. She bowed slightly and called out. When the Emperor Star Princess heard the way her mother addressed her, she shivered and looked at the middle-aged man expressionlessly. Why, aren't you going to greet your father? Di Haosong looked at her with a beaming face and said. Oh. The Emperor Star Princess replied coldly with an indifferent tone. Star Princess. The lady beside her called out to her. Hee, I didn't know I had a father. The Emperor Star Princess replied plainly when she saw her mother touching her. Her words made Di Haosong frown slightly. All right, lass. Don't throw a tantrum. He spoke plainly to the Emperor Star Princess. What kind of father is he? The Emperor Star Princess looked at her mother and replied directly. Chapter 2650. Wonderful pop-up window for free reading. What kind of father is he? Di Haosong's face darkened when he heard Emperor Star Girl's words. He was the Emperor's son from 40,000 years ago, and had a life of glory. Which of his children didn't fear and respect him? Yet Emperor Star Girl had completely disregarded him. You've grown up, child. Di Haosong stared at Emperor Star Girl coldly. Yeah, I've grown up. Emperor Star Girl stared back at him without fear, and replied plainly. Star Girl, how can you speak to your father like that? The woman by the side quickly spoke to Emperor Star Girl with a bitter expression. He's not fit to be a husband or a father. The Emperor Star daughter said stubbornly as she looked at her mother. Hee, great. Meiwan, you've taught your daughter well. Di Haosong's face darkened instantly as he stared coldly at the woman. Don't look at my mother like that. Do you think you're fit to be a husband? How dare you criticize others? Emperor Star Girl stared at him with disdain and said directly. You lack education. Di Haosong's face turned cold as he slapped his palm towards Emperor Star Girl's face. Cough cough. Wang Xian extended his hand and held Di Haosong's palm easily. He coughed but didn't say a word. Stop it. Di Haosong sensed Wang Xian's palm, and his expression changed. Following which, he stared at Wang Xian with a gloomy face, and growled with murderous intent in his eyes. You should be the one to stop, Wang Xian said plainly. Wang Xian said plainly. He let go of his hand and stared at him emotionlessly. Haha, great. Looks like you've grown up. You even dare to disobey me. Di Haosong laughed as he stared coldly at Emperor Star Girl and her mother. Hubby, Mom, we don't have to be bullied by him. Haven't we been like this all these years? Hee. Now that I've become the Emperor's daughter, why should I be afraid of him? Emperor Star Girl said coldly. Once she became the Emperor's daughter, she would be valued by the imperial court. Although her status wasn't as high as her father, Her father wouldn't be able to do anything to her. After all, her talent wasn't inferior to her father's. Before her father reached rank 8 or rank 9, the imperial court would treat him equally. The Emperor Star Daughter's mother fell silent and sighed helplessly. As your father, even if you become a princess, I can still teach you a lesson about how disgraceful and heinous it is. Di Haosong was completely infuriated by Emperor Star Maiden's words. He raised his arm again and was about to hit her. Hey, don't embarrass yourself. Wang Xian looked over and spoke plainly. Once again, he grabbed his arm easily and reminded him. Get out of here. This is our family's business. Let go if you don't want to die. Di Haosong's expression changed again, as he stared at Wang Xian with undisguised killing intent. Don't embarrass yourself. Hearing his words, Bei Shuang placed her hand on Di Haosong's shoulder. Di Haosong wanted to dodge, but he found that he couldn't react in time. The palm landed on his body, and frost covered half of his arm. Wang Xian and Bei Shuang could tell that the Emperor Star Maiden did not have a good impression of her father. In fact, there was even a tinge of hatred. As for the Emperor Star Daughter's mother, she also had no feelings for her husband. Given to Di Haosong by his family, he naturally had no feelings for Di Haosong. In addition, he had been neglected for tens of thousands of years. How could she have a good impression of him? More than anything, she felt helpless and indignant. You guys are courting death. How dare you create trouble in the imperial court? Di Haosong's expression changed as he stared at Wang Xian and Bei Shuang with undisguised killing intent. The Emperor Star Daughter's business is also the Dragon Palace's business. Therefore, I'm sorry if you're looking for trouble. Wang Xian pushed Di Haosong gently with his palm. Di Haosong's entire body shook and retreated to the back. In an instant his face was filled with anger. In the center, the group of princes and princesses who were watching the battle noticed the situation and were slightly shocked. Big brother. Di Haofeng's expression changed as he rushed out to support Di Haosong. What's going on? Protector Song looked at Di Haosong before sweeping his gaze across Wang Xian, the Emperor Star Daughter, and the rest. Protector, it's nothing. Di Haosong's expression changed constantly as he took a deep breath and replied with a gloomy face. Don't wash your dirty linen in public. What else could he say about this? Bullied by the force that his daughter relied on? Where was his face? He stood among the group of princes and princesses with a gloomy face. Lord Protector, that girl is pretty strong. She's the strongest among the disciples. The force that she relies on is also very strong. If nothing goes wrong, the princess will be hers. In the center, an old lady glanced at the Emperor Star Daughter and sent a voice transmission to Protector Song. Yeah, if nothing goes wrong, she's the strongest, and is also the strongest disciple in the recent dozen generations. Protector Song nodded his head slightly. Mom, let's ignore him. When your daughter becomes the princess, we won't have to be afraid of him. Moreover, Wang Xian, Sister Bei Shuang, and the rest will help me. Over at Wang Xian's side, the Emperor Star Daughter comforted her worried mother with a smile. He's your father after all. The old lady sighed and said, Humph. The Emperor Star Daughter snorted softly before turning her head and thanking Wang Xian softly. Wang Xian smiled and nodded his head. At the front, 90 disciples were sparring one by one. After more than 10 hours, the ranking was out. 11 to 20 disciples stepped forward. The other 10 disciples will also enter the field. More than 10 hours was a short time for the experts. Protector Song's voice continued. Yes, the disciples came to the field with excitement in their eyes. They sized up their competitors with fighting spirit on their faces. 20 disciples and 6 females. The females will first choose a princess, and then the ranking will be carried out. Protector Song announced the rules. There would be 1 prince and princess in each batch. However, there would be a situation where the princess might not be as strong as the second or third place on the male side. This wouldn't affect the title of the princess, but it would affect the distribution of resources at the end. All male disciples will stand aside and watch. The 6 female disciples are free to challenge. Protector Song continued. Yes, Protector. The group of male disciples stood aside immediately. Who do you think will become the princess? Di Suzhuang's strength shouldn't be underestimated. She's definitely in the top 3 in our generation. There's a dark horse among the females, but I'm not sure how strong she is. Don't forget about the Emperor's star daughter. She's not weak either. The 14 young men walked to the side as some of them made their guesses. Emperor's star daughter? She's just an entertainer. What right does she have to be called the princess? Di Qingshan said with a sullen face. The few young men beside her smiled faintly when they heard her. Chapter 2651. The selection of the princess is about to begin. There are only 6 women in the top 20. I wonder who will get the title of princess. Di Suzhuang is the most likely. Goddess Suzhuang's strength is widely recognized. I heard that the ancestor elder Suzhuang often gives her pointers. Goddess Suzhuang must have reached the 7th order of the eternal God Lord realm. That woman called Liang Yi is a big dark horse. She had a lot of battle experience in the battle just now. The Emperor's Star Princess can't be ignored. This time, she brought the leader of a force with her, and that leader is the master of the Ice Goddess. The selection of the princess began. Everyone watched with wide eyes and began to discuss. The selection of the princess was about to begin, and the crowd was in an uproar. They analyzed the 6 women one by one. Among the 6 women, 4 were geniuses who lived in vast palaces and had the best resources in the Imperial Star region. The other 2 were the Emperor's Star Princess and the Dark Horse Girl. Di Suzhuang was the most popular. Many people thought she could become the princess. Although the Emperor's Star Princess was a top star in the Imperial Star region, the core geniuses of the Imperial Court didn't care about her at all. I heard that the Emperor's Star Princess is very strong. Among the 6 of them, only you are worthy of being my opponent. In the field, Di Suzhuang turned his body slightly and completely ignored the other 4 female disciples. He stared at the Emperor's Star Princess. The expressions of 3 of the women changed slightly. They were embarrassed by Di Suzhuang's disdain. The other woman looked on expressionlessly and slightly tightened her grip on the long sword in her hand. It seems that Di Suzhuang values the Emperor's Star Princess a lot. I heard that the Emperor's Star Princess isn't weak either. She's a star and doesn't lack resources. I just didn't expect Di Suzhuang to value her so much. Some of the onlookers were slightly surprised when they saw this. Di Suzhuang, I've heard of you for a long time. The Emperor's Star Princess looked at her as a faint smile appeared on her face. She glanced at the group of princes and paused her gaze on Di Haosong for 2 seconds. However, you're still far from being strong. She raised her head slightly and glanced at all the women around her, including the 16 young men 1,000 meters away. Bam bam. As her voice fell, the dragon blood sword appeared in her hand, emitting an incomparably cold sound. Emperor Star Maiden, you're too arrogant. Di Suzhuang's eyes turned cold. She was one of the top women in the imperial court. This was the first time someone had looked down on her. With a shake of her arm, a snow-white sword also appeared in her hand. Let's go together to save some time. The corners of the Emperor Star Maiden's mouth curled up as she swept her gaze across the surroundings. Clang! In the next moment, the dragon blood sword in her hand moved, covering all the people around her. Emperor Star Maiden, you're too arrogant. You actually want to challenge all of us by yourself? The expressions of the 4 women changed slightly when they saw the Emperor Star Maiden's attack enveloping them. This Emperor Star Princess is so arrogant. She actually wants to fight 1 against 5? How arrogant. Those who are able to make it to the top 20 are not that far apart in terms of strength. He actually dares to challenge 5 of them. When the 16 youths saw the Emperor Star Princess attack Di Suzhuang and the other 4 women, their expressions turned cold. What? Her energy also enveloped us. However, the next moment, to everyone's astonishment, the fiery red sword light also enveloped them. Now they suddenly understood what the Emperor Star Princess had said. Let's go together to save some time. Was she trying to save some energy to fight against them? Was she confident that she could challenge all 19 of them by herself? Arrogant and conceited. You don't know your place. Emperor Spirit Song, who was in the center, had a cold look on his face. She wasn't taking them seriously at all. Emperor Star Princess, are you looking for a fight? Di Ming, who was next to her, was also startled. Say that after you block my sword. The Emperor Star Princess's sword wasn't very fast. In fact, to show off her strength, the speed of her sword was very slow. What is the Emperor Star Princess doing? Does she really think she can fight against all 19 of them by herself? No, look at the power of her sword. The surrounding people were in an uproar. However, some of the princes and princesses in front of them sensed that something was wrong. They were all strong cultivators, and could clearly sense the power of the Emperor Star Princess's sword. They were all shocked. No, her sword is so strong. At this moment, Di Suzhuang and the others, who were closest to the Emperor Star Princess, sensed the terrifying power contained in the sword. So strong. The woman on the black horse had a solemn look on her face. Break! Di Suzhuang's face was full of panic as she slashed forward with her snow-white sword. Block it! The other women also gritted their teeth and took out their weapons to block. Oh no! She's very strong. How is this possible? The fiery sword aura had also reached the 14 young men. Feeling the power of the fiery sword, their expressions changed drastically. Boom, boom, boom. The next moment, all of them unleashed their full strength to block the attack. Bam! Ka ka ka. Oh no! How can she be so strong? Sounds of collision and disbelief could be heard. All the attacks from the Emperor Star Princess collapsed instantly. The fiery sword aura from the dragon blood sword continued sweeping towards them. Dodge! The 19 young men and women hurriedly retreated in fear, their expressions changing constantly. Because the Emperor Star Princess had purposely slowed the sword aura down, the 19 pale-faced people retreated from the range of the fiery sword aura. Just one sword. There was no one around the Emperor Star Princess. She stood there, looking down at the 19 young men and women with disdain. Indeed, just one sword. Given her peak Eternal Divine Lord strength, she could kill all of these 7th-level Eternal Divine Lord disciples with a single sword strike if she wanted to. His peak Divine Lord. Her words caused the 19 fleeing youths to gasp as they stared at her in fear and shock. Peak Divine Lord. The Emperor Star Princess had the strength of a peak Divine Lord. She was much, much stronger than them. How could the Emperor Star Princess be so strong? Peak Divine Lord. She's actually a peak Divine Lord. It's been a long time since such a strong disciple has appeared in the Imperial Star region. Exclamations of shock could be heard from the surroundings. Chapter 2652. In the Imperial Court's Disciple Tournament, those who could reach the Eternal God Lord's 7th Order were more or less qualified to become princes and princesses. Just like the 2 princes and princesses from the previous generation, they had this level of strength. Even after 5,000 years, they were only at the peak God Lord level. They were still a step away from becoming an immortal God King. But now that the Emperor Star Princess had displayed the strength of a peak God Lord, it meant that she could stand shoulder to shoulder with the princes and princesses from the previous generation. This was a difference of 5,000 years. How can the Emperor Star Princess be so strong? I remember that she was only around the 5th Order God Lord a few years ago. Did she obtain some supreme treasure to raise her strength so quickly? Either she's been hiding her strength all this time, or she's obtained a huge amount of resources in the past few years. The eyes of the surrounding people flickered as they looked at the Emperor Star Princess. She was facing 19 of the most outstanding disciples of her generation, and could still suppress them easily. It had been a long time since such a powerful disciple had appeared in the Imperial Court. So strong. Among the princes and princesses, Di Haosong's expression kept changing. This was his daughter. If it was any other time, he would definitely be very happy. His daughter had become the empress, and she was so powerful. But now, his expression gradually darkened. Peak God Lord. The 19 disciples' expressions kept changing. Di Su's face darkened as he gripped the snow-white longsword in his hand. I admit defeat. The woman on the black horse looked at the Emperor Star Princess, who was exuding a powerful aura, shook her head and retreated. I also admit defeat. I also admit defeat. With someone taking the lead, 2 other women shook their heads helplessly and retreated to the side. The strength of a peak god, lord wasn't something they could contend with. What about you guys? The Emperor Star Princess lifted her head slightly and glanced at the rest of the crowd, including the 14 young men. We concede defeat. I really didn't expect you to be so strong. The young men shook their heads and retreated to the side. In an instant, 10 men retreated to the side. Emperor Star Princess, don't think that we're afraid of you just because you have the strength of a peak god lord. The selection of the princes and princesses is a test of strength, not cultivation level. Disu gripped the snow-white longsword in his hand, unwilling to give up. Hua hua hua. In the next moment, drops of white liquid dripped from her longsword. The liquid slowly condensed into a human figure. The white figure entered Di Suzong's body. Boom. In the next moment, an incomparably powerful aura burst forth from her body. This is a battle spirit that I obtained. I nurtured it for 1,000 years and fused it with it. Don't think that you can suppress everyone just because you have the strength of a peak divine master. This competition isn't over yet. Disu's clothes fluttered even though there was no wind, and his aura surged. Battle spirit. I never thought that Di Suzhong would obtain such a treasure. Some people were shocked to see Di Suzhuang's aura increase. The princes and princesses looked on with twinkling eyes. The competition between the princes and princesses was a competition of strength and combat power. Other than high-tech items, everything else could be used. Hehe, Emperor Star Maiden. You want to suppress all of us? You're dreaming, no matter how strong you are. At the side, a wooden staff appeared in the hands of the Emperor Soul Singer. Vines extended from the staff, and the vines slowly covered the entire body. Crack, crack. Soon, a similarly powerful aura emanated from his body, and it wasn't any weaker than a peak divine master's. At the same time, the vines wrapped around his body made him more than 100 meters tall. Come out, wooden dove. Chirp chirp. But it wasn't over yet. He waved the staff in front of him, and a 10-meter-long battle pet suddenly appeared. The battle pet had a pair of leaf-like wings, and it perched on Emperor Soul Singer's massive shoulders. He's showing his trump card. Emperor Soul Singer has shown his trump card. A peak divine master battle pet, and those powerful vines covering his entire body. What sort of treasure is that? Hehe, as expected. None of the prodigies of our imperial court are simple. Emperor Soul Singer's aura is so strong. He himself has the fighting strength of a peak divine master. And with that battle pet of his, he's even stronger than the Emperor Star Maiden. Although he's borrowing external power, it's still a part of his strength. Some people were astonished to see the changes in Di Suzhong and Emperor Soul Singer. Even the Emperor Star Daughter's mother's face was filled with worry. Several young men and women revealed fearful expressions when they saw the changes in Emperor Soul Singer, and their pupils constricted. Hehe. I didn't expect the final battle to start so soon. Di Ming's lips curled up as he waved his arm. Crack crack crack. Pieces of metal appeared in front of him, transforming into a 10-meter-tall giant like a transformer. He leaped onto the body of the transformer. A puppet. All of them are very strong. They all have quite a lot of trump cards. The black-robed Dijio's eyes flashed with a dark luster. Crack 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 crack. 2 dark golden skeletons appeared around him. The dark golden skeletons exuded an eerie aura. Hehe. I won't be satisfied if I don't try. Emperor Star Maiden, don't be too arrogant. In terms of trump cards and resources, you're still far behind. Di Qing Shan waved his arm, and a wolf battle pet covered in scales appeared next to him. The battle pet looked around and bellowed angrily. A strong killing intent spread to the surroundings. Silence! Di Qing Shan shouted. The battle pet lowered its head and stood next to him. 2 powerful battle pets. That dark golden skeleton is a special kind of battle pet. They tamed it completely. They didn't tame it. They tamed it with the help of powerful beast tamers over time. That is why they can control it so easily. That requires long-term help. That is the foundation. When the group of young men and women saw this scene, they were a little envious. Hehe, Emperor Star Maiden, don't challenge us in such an arrogant way. Don't be so violent either. Apologize to us. Let's see who the Emperor Star Maiden is before we fight. Otherwise, we'll have to return the favor. Emperor Soul's song said to the Emperor Star Maiden coldly. The Emperor Star Maiden had embarrassed them. Naturally, they had to get back at her. I'm curious to see how arrogant you can be. Di Qingshan glared at the Emperor Star Maiden. No wonder you have the support of your seniors. You're different. But still, you're not qualified to compete with me. The Emperor Star Maiden's gaze swept across the surroundings as she slowly squatted down, a cold expression on her face. Stand, Snake, she shouted in a low voice. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The next second, a huge creature appeared. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.